Supplements should be something that's meant to complement your nutrition, but they shouldn't be the base of it. They shouldn't be the foundation. You still want to make sure you're eating good quality foods, getting in plenty of nutrients through your diet, and then supplements are meant to kind of round it out, help fill some of those gaps, and make your life a little bit easier and help you get that extra little benefit.
3, 2, 1, yeah!
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Helix Healthcast. I'm your host, Zach Morgan, and for this episode, we're going to be talking all about supplements. I get asked about these all the time, so let's get into it. In this episode, I want to go over a few things. We're going to talk about some of the most commonly used supplements. We'll talk about the benefits, some of the possible side effects. We'll talk about what to look for to ensure you're getting a good quality version of that supplement. We'll also talk about some of the red flags, things to avoid, maybe stay away from or be cautious of. And then we'll talk a little bit about whether I think they're worth your money, because sometimes they work, but I want to make sure you're getting the most bang for your buck. Before we get into specific supplements, I want to talk about supplements in general. Like the word says, supplements should be something that's meant to complement your nutrition, but they shouldn't be the base of it. They shouldn't be the foundation. You still want to make sure you're eating good quality foods, getting in plenty of nutrients through your diet, and then supplements are meant to kind of round it out, help fill some of those gaps, and make your life a little bit easier and help you get that extra little benefit on top of the nutrition that you're already getting from your diet. The more well-rounded your nutrition is, the less you'll have a need for supplements. So they can still be great, but you shouldn't be depending on them. Another thing I want to talk about before we get into it is just the supplement industry in general. It is not super well regulated. Some of you might know this. There's a lot of marketing out there. There's a lot of misleading marketing out there. And it's not the most well-regulated industry. I'm not going to say it's not at all, but it really kind of falls on you to take it into your own hands to ensure that you're getting good quality products, that you're not wasting your money, and that hopefully you're avoiding anything that could have some adverse side effects. Just like nutrition, supplementation requires consistency. So whichever supplements you decide to try, you need to give it time to work. It's not going to be a magic pill. You're not going to see results right away, and you need to stick with it to really give it a chance. I've seen a lot of people go supplement hopping. They'll try something out. If a few days in or a week in, they're not seeing results, they try something else, but you really do need to give it time. So I would say that when you do decide on a supplement to try or a supplement protocol to try, give it at least a month. Give it some time to work. See what the effects are before you try something else, and make some small changes so that you know whether it's working or not. Instead of introducing a dozen new supplements into your routine, maybe start with one or two. See if those work, because if you do introduce too many at once, you might get results, but you don't know what's working. You don't know what's worth spending your money on. So I would say try one or two things at a time, give them a little bit of time to work, and then you'll know whether those were worth your money or not. Now let's get into our first supplement. The big one, the one most people know about and have tried, protein. It's kind of a general term because there's a lot of different types of protein, a lot of different uses for it. And so we're going to get into some of the main types and who it might be good for and what to look out for. We're going to start with the most common, which is whey protein. That's the one that you've probably seen everywhere. It's the one that's in most protein shakes and protein bars. Protein is one of the most used and most trusted supplements. We all know we need to get protein in our diet, probably about 1 gram per pound of body weight. I usually say within a range of 0.7 to 1.2, but roughly about a gram per pound of body weight, depending on what your goals are, what your nutrition's like. So definitely need to get in your protein, and taking a protein supplement can help you do that, whether it be in a powder, a pre-made drink, a bar, or however you want to take it. I will start by saying protein definitely works. Like I said, it's essential, but making sure that you're choosing the right one for your goals, your diet, maybe your sensitivities is going to be essential to getting the most out of it. So again, we'll start with whey protein. Whey protein is a super high quality protein that is derived from milk during the cheese making process. So the whey protein is a byproduct. You get the cheese, you'll get the whey, and whey protein falls into two categories, either isolate or concentrate. Both are good. Both can be super effective, but one might be better for you depending on what your goals are. Whey protein isolate is going to contain a higher percentage of protein, usually about 90+% of the protein. The whey isolate is going to be protein, whereas concentrate is going to contain about 70 to 80% protein, and then it'll also contain some carbohydrates and fats. So you're still getting plenty of protein in, but you're also getting some carbs and fats. Both are going to contain all 9 essential amino acids, which is what we need when we have protein. So whey protein is going to contain all of them. It's going to get you a well-rounded protein source. Like I said, there's the 9 essential amino acids. Some proteins don't contain all of them. Some contain some, so you kind of have to mix and match, but whey protein contains all of them. So isolate, being that it is mostly just protein with very little, if any, carbs and fats, it's going to be a really good choice for anyone who wants to get more protein in, but still manage their calories a little bit more. If you're trying to eat in a calorie deficit, then whey isolate is going to be a really good option for you because it's just straight protein. So it allows you to control your calories a little bit more. Because whey concentrate has some carbohydrates and fats, it's going to be a little bit higher calorie, but for some people that also means they like the taste a little bit better. The carbs and fats just add some flavor. And so if you're not as worried about maintaining a calorie deficit, then concentrate might be a really good option. For most people, especially those that are taking it post-workout, which is one of the most common times to take protein, I usually suggest isolate because I feel like if your goal is to get more protein, that's going to be a more direct way to do it. But concentrate's still a really good option, and concentrate often can cost a little bit less. So if you're on a budget, then you might want to look at concentrates. There are also some that have a mix of both so that you're kind of getting a middle ground without having to spend as much money as just a straight isolate cost. So that's the difference between whey isolate, whey concentrate, but both are really good quality. Both are going to be great for you, except if you have a dairy sensitivity, then whey might not be the best option because, like I said, it comes from milk. The other type of milk protein that we're going to get into a little bit is casein protein. This is a little less common than whey, but still super common out there. It's another protein found in milk. It makes up about 80% of milk protein, and it's more slow digesting than whey. So it's going to keep you fuller for longer. It's going to form a gel-like substance in the stomach. It might sound weird. Don't get turned off by it. It happens. So it's going to release those amino acids a little bit slower, which means whey is probably a better option for post-workout. But if you're looking for, say, a meal replacement or a nighttime protein shake, casein's going to be a really good option because it can keep you fuller longer. So if you're using it as a meal replacement, it can really help with that. And if you're taking it before bed, trying to get some more protein in, it's going to digest slower throughout the night. So while you're sleeping, you're going to continue to digest those amino acids. So casein's a really good option for both of those. It's also a pretty pure protein, so it's going to be pretty straightforward. Make sure you're not getting any, whether it be whey or casein, make sure you're staying away from any additives, make sure you're getting a good quality. But for the most part, those are going to be some really good options for anyone trying to get any protein in. Now let's get a little bit into plant-based proteins. These have become a lot more popular in the last few years, and there's a ton of different types of plant-based proteins. That's kind of broad to say plant-based. For example, we can have soy, pea, brown rice protein, all those different types. One thing you really want to look out for is the amino acid profile. As I mentioned earlier, there are the 9 essential amino acids, and not all plant-based proteins are going to contain all 9. So you might need to mix some. It also depends on what your diet is like to make sure you're really rounding it out and getting all the essential amino acids. One common misconception with plant-based proteins that I do want to address is that they're healthier. That's not necessarily true. If you're on a vegan diet or if you have a dairy sensitivity, then plant-based is a great option, but just because it comes from plants doesn't automatically make it healthier than a whey or a casein protein. So it's a great option for those that want to use it, but don't think that it's just automatically going to be healthier because it's plant-based, because it really does depend on the quality and the type of protein. So let's get into a couple of the common plant-based protein types. We're going to start with soy protein. It's one of the most complete of the plant-based protein sources because it does contain all 9 essential amino acids in a pretty good quantity. It's pretty rich in leucine, isoleucine, and valine, which are really important for muscle growth and muscle recovery. So soy protein is going to be a really good option. If you see that in your plant-based protein, then that's a good option to stick with. Another really good option is pea protein. It's derived from yellow split peas, and it also contains all 9 essential amino acids. It's rich in lysine, but it is limited in some other amino acids. So it doesn't necessarily contain all 9 in super high volume. So you need to make sure you're still eating plenty. It's not as rich in methionine. Always struggle to get that one out, but methionine, but it's got all 9. So you're still covering all your bases. Another common plant-based protein type is going to be brown rice protein. It's a little bit lower in lysine, which is one of those 9 essential amino acids. So it's really good when combined with pea protein, because what one lacks a little bit, even though they contain all 9, but one is a little bit lower in, the other is going to make up for. So a really good plant-based protein might be one that contains both pea protein and brown rice protein. Another really good plant-based protein option is hemp protein. It's a good source of the essential amino acids. It's got all 9 of them. It's really rich in arginine, which is important for nitric oxide production and blood vessel dilation. So for someone who's maybe competing in more endurance sports, a runner, a cyclist, a triathlete, and that's going to be a good one because it's going to help with blood flow with that nitric oxide production, which is going to help vasodilation, help your blood get to the muscles a little bit faster. And then one other common type of plant-based protein is chickpea protein. Name's pretty straightforward, derived from chickpeas, but it's got a kind of moderate amino acid profile. It's rich in lysine and arginine, but it's lower in methionine. I keep getting caught up on that one every time. One of these days I'll get it. But so chickpea protein is maybe not one that I would want to be the basis, but it's good to have in there. A lot of plant-based proteins that you see will have a mix of these so that they can get a pretty complete amino acid profile. So really, when you're looking at plant-based proteins, look back at that ingredient label and find one that's got a good mix. Again, soy protein, pea protein, those are going to be really good. Brown rice protein, but a good mix of them will help kind of cover all of your bases. The last protein that I'm going to cover, I'm not going to get too into it, is collagen. I kind of put it in its own category because it is not a complete protein. There are some studies that show that it can help with connective tissues, help with having healthier and stronger skin, hair, and nails, but it's still fairly new. It hasn't been studied quite enough. It's not going to be a complete protein for those of you looking to recover from a strenuous workout, build muscle, build strength. And for me personally, there just isn't enough research behind it for me to recommend it to you. I'm not saying you shouldn't take it. If you feel like it's helping you, that's great. But just know that it's still being researched. The next supplement that I want to get into is creatine. This is one that I suggest to a ton of people because it is one of the most, if not the most studied supplements. So we know a lot about it. It's been studied for years. There's a ton of research on it, which makes me really confident in being able to say that not only does it work, but it works well. And it's really going to give you a lot of bang for your buck because it's also one of the most affordable supplements. Usually comes unflavored, so it's easy to add to stuff. So I am a big proponent of creatine. Now let's get into what it actually is and what it does. Creatine is a naturally occurring compound found in a lot of foods that we eat. It's synthesized by the body primarily in the liver, kidneys, and pancreas. Creatine is then stored in the muscles and used as a quick energy source during short bursts of high intensity activities like weightlifting, sprinting, or anything like a HIIT workout. Creatine is going to be great for giving us that quick energy source. So if you are a weightlifter, if you're someone who just enjoys high intensity activities, then creatine is going to really help performance. It is found in food sources like red meat, poultry, and fish. So we're getting plenty of it in our diet. If you're vegan, then I definitely suggest taking a creatine supplement because you're probably not getting as much of it in your diet. But taking a creatine supplement can help us just get more, really kind of round it out. There are a few different types of creatine. The one that you're going to see the most that I would recommend is creatine monohydrate. It's usually considered the best choice. It's the one that's been studied the most. It's pretty safe and effective and clean. So if you are looking for creatine, I would suggest looking for creatine monohydrate. There are some other forms that might have more specific benefits, but they're still being researched. So the one that I would stick with again is monohydrate. Like I said before, creatine is also a pretty safe supplement. There are some possible side effects, like some bloating. Some people have reported some stomach discomfort. Usually that will come more when you first start taking it as your body adjusts to having higher amounts of creatine in your system. So if you do feel like there's some bloating, then you can always maybe lower the dose, or if you decide it's not for you, that's fine. But for the most part, there's not really a ton of side effects. The one thing I will say, to kind of watch out for is anyone with kidney issues might want to consult a professional before using creatine just to make sure that it can handle it. Again, it is processed in your kidneys. And so I just want to make sure if you do have any kidney issues or pre-existing conditions that your doctor gives you the okay. So I would ask them before you do. Let's get into a couple of the benefits of creatine because that's what you really want to know. What's it going to do for you? One is increased muscle mass or increased muscle density. Creatine is going to help promote muscle growth. It's going to enhance the water content in the muscle cells, which is going to help with muscle protein synthesis. So it's going to help your muscles recover from a strenuous workout. It's going to help them get stronger, get bigger, and help you recover faster after that workout and feel better, be able to get right back to it. It's also going to improve your performance in the gym. As I said earlier, creatine is used by our muscles as like an extra energy source for quick bursts of really high intensity, again, weightlifting, sprinting. And so if you are doing those type of workouts, then taking some creatine is going to help with your performance in the gym or in whatever you're doing. The other thing creatine can help is with brain health. There's still studies being done about this. The research is starting to come out that it can also promote better cognitive function, like better memory and brain function. So while I wouldn't necessarily say that's the reason to take it, it can also help with that. And then the last thing that I have written here, like I said earlier, it's going to help with recovery. You're going to recover a lot faster and a lot better. So it's going to help you reduce inflammation and help repair your muscles after a tough workout so that you can continue to work out hard and be better. If you are going to take creatine, the dosage is usually about 3 to 5 grams per day, but some people like to do a loading phase. So what they will do is for about 5 to 7 days, they'll take 20 grams a day, but split up into a few doses. So usually 5 grams spread out into 4 doses, because that way they're really loading their body with creatine, getting more in their system. What we want to get to is kind of like an equilibrium where we just have more creatine in our system 24/7. So once you get through that loading phase, then about 3 to 5 grams a day is pretty good. Some people skip the loading phase and just start taking it so that their body has a little more time to adjust. But it's the kind of supplement you want to take every day. But as long as it's in your system, then you're good. Like I said earlier, creatine usually comes unflavored. You can get some flavored creatine. You can get like some gummies. If you like taking that, it's just easy to pop 1 or 2. But a lot of creatine will come unflavored. It's going to be super affordable. And so what I do is I would add it to either like a protein shake, or if I make like some oatmeal in the morning, I can mix it in. You can really mix it into whatever because it's not a ton. It's unflavored. It dissolves really easily. And so it's easy to add to like even maybe your coffee or a smoothie. So as long as you're taking it every day, try to take it at roughly the same time so that it kind of always stays in your system and you're used to it. But again, 3 to 5 grams a day, every day, so that it's always in your system. Let's get into our next supplement, which is pre-workouts. This, again, is kind of a broad category because pre-workouts can vary greatly. They're also one that there's a lot of pros and cons with this because you can have some really effective pre-workouts and you can have some that have some side effects. So pre-workouts are the kind of thing that I really suggest you do your research with. But let's get into the benefits, some possible side effects, and then what to look for in a pre-workout, especially depending on your goals. The main reason people would take pre-workout is increased energy. Most pre-workouts are going to contain some stimulants like caffeine to help you have more energy, reduce fatigue, help you be able to get a better workout. Especially if you're someone who gets kind of tired throughout the day, like a pre-workout can help you, just give you that boost. A lot of pre-workouts are also going to include some nootropics to help with improved focus. If you're someone who gets easily distracted in the gym, this might be beneficial to you. But a lot of pre-workouts are also geared towards more mental focus and concentration to help you stay zoned in and be more focused on the workout. There are also ingredients that are going to help you with improved performance. They might help you with strength. Some might help with endurance or power. So that's going to kind of depend on the type of workout you're doing. But there can be things like vasodilators, beta-alanine that will help you get a better performance in the gym or in whatever you're doing. Now, what to look out for? One of the big side effects is just like the jitters, especially caffeine jitters come from having too much caffeine. So you want to be careful, especially if you're someone who maybe drinks coffee or other energy drinks throughout the day. Some pre-workouts can be very high in caffeine. And so those stimulants might help at first, but you don't want to get the jitters. You don't want to overdo it with caffeine. You don't want to crash, especially if you're someone who works out maybe like first thing in the morning and then has to go to work. You don't want to show up to work all jittery. So be careful of that. It's going to increase your heart rate, and we don't want it to do that too much. Another possible side effect can be insomnia. If you work out more in the evenings, then you may want to stay away from high stimulant pre-workouts. There are some no stimulant pre-workouts, but you might want to stay away from the high stimulants so that you can actually get some sleep. Sleep is essential to recovery. And so what's the point of getting a better workout if you can't sleep and you can't recover? That's all going to add up. Some pre-workouts can also cause some digestive issues, maybe some bloating, some stomach issues. Maybe your body doesn't process it too well. We want to watch out for that. The other thing to be concerned with pre-workouts is increased tolerance and dependency. I've definitely been through this where I got to the point where a scoop of pre-workout, and I'm talking like a 250 milligram caffeine pre-workout, was what I needed just to like feel normal. I became really tolerant to it, so it wasn't having the same effect that it did when I started taking it, and I really became dependent on it. Like I couldn't work out without it. I had to go cold turkey, cut off. I had like 2 weeks of really bad workouts and no energy and struggled, but I found myself just getting too dependent on it. And so if you are going to take pre-workout, maybe, schedule times where you don't. Maybe you just do it on certain days where you know you're really going to need it, or have like a week off every month so that you can lower your dependency and keep your tolerance from getting so high that it just doesn't even end up doing anything. Let's get into a couple of the most common ingredients in pre-workouts that you know what to look out for, and you can get one that's going to work best for you. As I said earlier, caffeine is probably the most common ingredient in pre-workouts. That's what's going to give you that boost of energy. We all know the feeling of getting some caffeine in. Sometimes you just need it. So that's okay, but you want to make sure you're not having too much caffeine, and especially not having too much caffeine late at night. Another really common ingredient in pre-workout is going to be beta-alanine. That's going to help you reduce muscle fatigue. It's going to help improve performance. It's also the thing that can make you feel kind of itchy. So if you do get that feeling when you take pre-workout, then maybe look for one that doesn't contain beta-alanine. But if that doesn't cause any issues for you, then beta-alanine can be a really great ingredient to help improve performance. Another ingredient that you'll often find in pre-workout is creatine. It's going to help with strength, with power output. We've already talked about creatine. So if you are getting a pre-workout that contains creatine, make sure you're adjusting your creatine intake to, kind of balance it out if you are taking a separate creatine supplement. So look out for that so that you're not overdoing it with creatine. Another common ingredient is going to be citrulline malate. This is going to help improve blood flow. It's going to help you work out longer, work out harder. It's going to help reduce fatigue, and it's found in a ton of pre-workouts. So citrulline malate, again, is going to help improve blood flow. Some pre-workouts are also going to contain some branched chain amino acids. These are usually referred to as BCAAs, but they're going to help you with muscle recovery after the workout, but you'll find them in a lot of pre-workouts because getting them in before or during a workout, they're already going to be in your system so that you can immediately start recovering better. As I said earlier, nootropics, which covers a few different ingredients, is found in a lot of pre-workouts geared towards improved focus. So L-theanine and tyrosine are going to be the most common ones that you see. They'll improve brain function, improve focus, help you concentrate a little bit more on what you're doing. And then some pre-workouts are going to include some different vitamins and minerals, maybe some electrolytes, just to help you keep from cramping, keep from fatiguing, help reduce risk of dehydration. So that's another thing you can look out for, especially if you're someone engaging in endurance sports or doing some really long, tough workouts. Before we wrap it up with pre-workouts, I do want to point out a couple red flags to look out for. One is proprietary blends. I'm not saying that they're bad in all cases, but it's definitely something to be cautious of. The idea behind a proprietary blend is that they will give you a blend of different ingredients and they'll tell you the total amount that those ingredients add up to, but they don't have to tell you how much of each one is in it. It was created so that companies could protect some proprietary formula that they have so people can't steal it from them, but they're also often used to kind of cover up how much of something is in it. So maybe they want you to think there's more of a certain ingredient when there's really not. Maybe they want to, not tell you that they're adding a ton of something to, make you feel it, but something that might have some adverse side effects. So be careful with proprietary blends. Like I said, they're not all bad, but it's definitely something to look out for. Another thing to be cautious of is excessive caffeine. Really, anything with more than 400 milligrams per serving can be super risky. I personally would stay away from anything with more than like 250. Even that's really high. But you're going to see some that are super high stimulant. You probably want to stay away from that, especially if you are getting caffeine in other ways during the day. Like if you're drinking coffee, maybe having an energy drink and then doing pre-workout, you definitely don't want that much caffeine. You should also look out for any banned substances. For me personally, being a competitive weightlifter, I need to be really careful because I could get drug tested. I compete in a drug tested sport. And so I need to be careful with what supplements and what pre-workouts especially I take, because there are a lot of supplements that are banned for anyone competing in something. If you're not competing, then it's not quite as big a deal. Probably still want to stay away from it, but it's probably not as big a deal. But if you're someone who competes in weightlifting, powerlifting, triathlon, then you might want to look out for any banned substances, because there are some that are banned in sports, but they aren't necessarily illegal. So it's totally legal for them to be in a pre-workout. But if you get tested positive for it, then you're going to get a ban. For me, I think it would be like a 4-year ban. Don't really want that just for taking a little bit of pre-workout. Rather stick with something safe. Another thing to be cautious of is just a really long, overwhelming ingredient list. You want ingredients that are going to help you, but if there's so many things in it, then they're probably overdoing it, and there's probably not enough of the things that you really need. So I would try to find something with a little bit more specificity geared towards your goals, the type of workouts you're doing, so that you can get the most bang for your buck. And then the last thing I would want to just kind of be cautious of, this ties in a little bit with the proprietary blends, but anything with a lack of transparency. There are a lot of brands out there that just don't like to provide clear information. They kind of are iffy with the doses. And if you don't know what you're taking, then you probably want to stay away from it. Usually the brands that are super high quality, clean, they have no problem being transparent. So if I see a brand that, is not being totally transparent, kind of covering things up, then it immediately makes me suspicious. So hopefully you find a pre-workout that works for you. Pre-workouts, I wouldn't say are essential. They're helpful, but you don't want to get dependent on it. So experiment with them, try them, but it's not something necessarily that you need every time. The next supplement that I want to talk about, and we'll kind of break this one into a couple categories, is hydration helpers. A lot of electrolyte supplements or things that will just help with hydration, they have become a lot more popular, especially in the last few years, like Liquid IV, Element, Salud. These are all great options that'll really help anyone who might struggle with dehydration. I'm a big big fan of electrolyte supplements. So what are electrolytes? Well, they're minerals in your body that carry an electric charge, and they play a crucial role in maintaining a whole bunch of different physiological functions like muscle contractions, nerve imbalances. Part of the reason when you're dehydrated and you lose electrolytes, you'll cramp, because that's what electrolytes are responsible for. Some of the most common ones are sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. So those are what you should really look out for in an electrolyte supplement. And when we sweat, we lose electrolytes. So especially if you're doing any kind of outdoor activities or endurance sports or just really high intensity activity, then electrolyte supplement might be really beneficial for you, especially if you sweat a lot. So we'll kind of break electrolyte supplements down into ones that contain carbohydrates and ones that don't. But let's talk about what the benefits of electrolytes are before we get into the carb factor. One is just rehydration. They'll help you restore electrolyte balance after you're sweating to make sure that you stay hydrated, you don't cramp, you don't fatigue too much. That's obviously what they're mostly meant for. They'll also help you with performance so that you can maintain your level of power output, so that you can maintain your level of effort without kind of crashing, especially if you do get dehydrated. And they also can help prevent heat-related issues. When we lose those electrolytes, that's when we get things like heat stroke or other heat-related illnesses. So if you are working out outside in the heat, then I would definitely suggest an electrolyte supplement. Some will also include carbs, usually found in the form of either glucose or fructose, because those are fast digesting carbs. So they're going to be really beneficial for taking during exercise. It'll just give you an extra energy source to help you with that high intensity activity. So if you do want to take one that includes carbohydrates, it's going to help you have more sustained energy. So especially if you are an endurance athlete, or you're doing really long workouts, if you're doing like a marathon, ultramarathon, triathlon, a long bike ride, then I would probably look for one that also includes carbs. For me, when I did my triathlon, I had some electrolyte supplements that didn't contain carbs, some that did, so that I could kind of alternate and get plenty of electrolytes in, because I didn't want to overdo it on the carbs. But another good thing carbs are going to do is help just improve absorption so that the electrolytes will actually get into your system a little bit better and a little bit faster. If you are going to have one with carbs, then the rule of thumb is usually 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour of training. So for me, doing a triathlon that took a few hours, I was trying to get in about 50 grams per hour, because I'm a little bit on the bigger side, especially for a triathlete. 30 to 60 grams per hour is usually where you want to be. So again, if you are doing more short activities, anything under an hour, maybe 90 minutes, then you might want to take just an electrolyte supplement that doesn't contain the carbs. Or if you are kind of using it as a recovery tool, maybe taking it after a tough workout when you've been sweating, then you probably don't need the carbs, because you don't need to be able to put out more power, more energy. You're done with the workout. If you are doing a workout that's longer than that kind of 90-minute range, then I would probably suggest having one with carbs. The last supplement that I want to get into is greens powders. These have really blown up. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of athletic greens, to kind of help round out some deficiencies in your diet. Usually they are made from a blend of a bunch of different fruits, vegetables, herbs, algae, other plant-based ingredients. They're usually found in a powdered form. They have a really concentrated source of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and other nutrients that we need that we might not get enough of from our diet. And because they're so new, there's still not a ton of research, so I don't want to make any really bold claims, but let's talk about a couple of the possible benefits that you could get from greens powders. Most of this is still anecdotal. I personally have tried them and I've found some benefits, but like I said, they're still doing research, so I'm still kind of waiting to really be able to make super specific bold claims. Like I said before, they're really rich in vitamins and minerals, so they can help you get more of that in. They can also help you kind of alkalize. Some people have said they help improve the body's pH balance. There's still a lot of research that needs to be done, but that is a claim that some people have made. So I'll just kind of leave it at that, but I don't want to say for sure. The science is still out on that one. They can also just be a really convenient way to kind of get more of those vitamins, minerals, nutrients, especially if you're someone who maybe doesn't eat enough fruits and vegetables, which is probably a lot of us. I personally like taking them when I'm traveling so that I can make sure I'm getting enough of those nutrients in when I might not be quite as healthy in my nutrition. And they can really just help kind of improve digestion, improve energy, help improve our immune system. So there's a lot of possible benefits to green powders, but we're still kind of figuring out what the exact benefits are. And there's a lot of options out there. So, kind of be careful, but also there's something that I would say is probably worth trying and seeing if it works for you. The things I would maybe watch out for with greens powders are possible digestive issues like gas, bloating, especially if you consume a lot of it. So I would start maybe on the lighter side, kind of build up, see how it goes. There are some people who might also have sensitivities or allergies to certain greens powders, depending on what's in them. So I would kind of keep my eye out for that. Maybe be careful. Again, start with a little bit, see how it goes. And if you're taking any medications, like especially any blood thinning medications, then I would maybe be careful with greens powders. Consult your healthcare professional before you do. One thing to look out for in a greens powder, if you are going to try it, is ingredient diversity. I know I kind of said the opposite of this with pre-workouts, but with a greens powder, it might be worth looking at one that has a long ingredient list because we want to kind of cover our bases, get plenty of vitamins and minerals. A lot of greens powders might have a really long ingredient list, and that can be a really good thing because it means it's a well-rounded supplement. So still get most of your nutrients in through your nutrition, through your diet, through whole foods, but a greens powder can be a great way to kind of fill those gaps, especially if maybe you are eating in a calorie deficit and you want to make sure you get enough of those vitamins and minerals in without adding a bunch of calories. So that's the last supplement that I want to get into. There are a couple more that I get asked about that I'm not going to get too much into. One is fat burners. My suggestion would be don't take them. Usually, best case scenario, they're ineffective. Worst case scenario, they can have some adverse effects. So I'm not a big fan of fat burners. I'm not going to get too much into the science, talk too much about it. I would just say probably stay away from them. And then the other one I get asked about a lot is testosterone boosters. For the most part, waste of money. If you are someone who maybe has low testosterone, if you get tested and you find that you need some, try testosterone replacement therapy through a healthcare professional, of course. But testosterone boosters, for the most part, are just going to be a waste of your money. So if you don't mind throwing away your money, you can try it, but I'm not a big fan of it. So that is supplements. If there are any others you have questions about, you can reach out to us at podcast@helixgyms.com. I hope this has been helpful. We are just on our third episode now, so I appreciate you listening and I appreciate your support. If you can give us a follow, if you can subscribe, maybe leave us a rating, we would really appreciate it. And if you do want to check us out, we are in Los Angeles. So if you want to come get a workout in here at Helix, where I'm filming this, if you're listening to it, you can't see, but if you're watching the video, I'm here at Helix. So come join us for a workout anytime, or you can find us at Instagram at helixgyms.com. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next one.